This is our first day back on location filming with Bindi.
Steve was supposed to get on it, but Paddy got on it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Steve told him to get on it.
Yeah.
That's what we do with Bindi. We say ride the bison, and if you're safe, then we'll look at it.
Bindi can kind of lead him up. We came down there and just start him from there, and you can kind of lead him up here.
You're just fine.
At the moment, just for the next week or two, we'll just do odd days, just testing, seeing how Bindi's going to cope with getting back into it, and Terry as well, and Wes.
Just remember to love him, honey.
Okay, here we go. Here's Bindi going in.
You know, the hardest thing is when you're struck by tragedy like this, that everybody, you tend to, grieve and you're down and it's depressing. But I'm dealing with the Irwin family, and they're the most professional family I've ever worked with.
Just wait until Ian gets him turned around, and you can go up and take your buffalo.
If I say we're rolling, they will pick themselves up for that shot, probably deflate a bit after it, but basically they know when the camera's on Terry and Bindi that you have to put on a brave face and a smile and carry on.
This is Humphrey. He's a bison. Did you know that bison are one of the biggest land animals in America?
Bindi is an amazing little girl. She is a real professional.
He's got really big, long, brown fur.
The thing about Bindi is she seems to enjoy it.
But now there's only a couple left.
Filming for her is very much like other kids' soccer. It's like her cricket, it's like her soccer, it's like her sport.
Boy, did you know bison can weigh up to a ton?
So right from the word go, Terry was very clever in saying to Bindi, well, Bindi, whenever you want to get back to filming, because she knows she loves it so much, then you make the decision. So we just haven't really said much more than that, and pretty much Bindi has been basically going, come on, I want to start filming again, I want to start getting out there, I want to start spreading Dad's message, and I think that's part of her way of coping as well, and she just loves performing and filming. So here we are, starting to film.
They help him in case he wants to have a little fight to get his girl to, and then can I please go?
That's perfect. Just take it up from there. That was perfect.
You can keep going.
Remember, he's got a funny little beard, and you can talk about his hump.
It's a little bit different now, of course, because Stevie's not around. So it's kind of me and Terry and John, and just feeling the ways and seeing how things are going. But Bindi's just wonderful, so she's a little rock, yeah.
Okay.
Nice and slow.
Rolling crane. And go, Bindi, action.
I'm trying to get across the message that don't be afraid of animals. They're just put on this earth to help the environment and everything like that. There used to be millions and millions of bison, but now they're endangered.
Smile, could you?
Some people think that I would be afraid of them, but I'm never, ever afraid of an animal. I just get excited. And some that are dangerous, I think, ooh, what's going to happen, and things like that.
And here we are back at the Queensland Reptile Corner Park with two crocodiles.
I'd met Steve in the late 80s. He'd given me about 16 videotapes that he'd recorded catching crocodiles. So one night I got home and watched this tape till 3 o'clock in the morning. And at the end of that, I was so amazed by the vision I'd seen. It was so different, it was so unique. He came across so well, it was just amazing, what I was feeling.
What the hell is their name?
We did the first 2 shows and, oh crikey, I find them embarrassing. And I was struggling. John comes up to me, he goes, Steve-o, this is what you got to do, mate. Don't change. Just be natural. Just be you.
I'm not a superstitious person, but over the years, Steve and I learnt that when times were really good, that there was a pitfall happening, that we were going to fall down really bad and crash. In the beginning of this year, I had a premonition that this was my last year. Because it was so strong, I made a will for the first time in my life. And because I had family history of cancer and stuff, I started having tests. I didn't have any problems. But it still was there, and I couldn't work out why. And then suddenly the tragedy hit us on Bat Reef, and it came to me that it wasn't me that I was feeling the premonition about. It was really Steve, because my world did end with Steve on that reef. Steve never ever thought that he would be taken by an animal. No, he was comfortable with animals, he was at one, he could understand nearly every animal he dealt with. He had no fear of them.
Crikey, I reckon he's the biggest one we've got this year.
I reckon so too.
I reckon. When can we put a tape measure on him?
We can do that right now.
All right, come on, where's the tape measure?
We set out at the end of August to meet Steve in Lakeville National Park, because he'd been up there for 5 weeks on crocodile research mission with the Queensland University and National Parks and Wildlife.
Keep it going down the midline.
And I'd always planned that I would bring the crew in at the end of that trip.
11 and a half. So he wins by half an inch, Philippe.
And film the last couple of days of the last croc capture.
Kate's on the front leg and you guys are on back legs? Okay, great.
Alrighty, sounds like you got a plan.
We got a plan, but you need to say when to jump.
Yeah, no worries, you've got it.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about timing the death rolls, because I'll bet you that this is a croc that we've caught before named Natalie.
Oh.
And she's a little doer.
Wait till she's rolled.
And go. Let her roll, let her roll, let her go.
Let her go.
Let her roll. And go now, pin her down.
Got her now.
Back leg up. What's that?
Looking back on it, it's quite sad to think that that was the very final time that Steve would be there with his dad, Bob, with Terry, with his little Robert, and Bindi. And they had the best time. They really did have a great family time. Even though Steve was working, doing research on crocodiles, he had plenty of time to devote to the family.
And how's your tummy going? Has it been behaving itself? Oh, good. That's good. That's pretty good. All right. Will we head off then?
Yeah.
Let's go set some more traps and catch more crocs tomorrow, will we?
Yeah.
Okay, mate.
You do it now.
The last day that we got there to film, Steve did a little speech to all the crew and thanked them, and turned to me and said thank you to me for helping him through, you know, for all of the years that we've worked together. And when I look at that back, it's really eerie.
It's all about great people coming together and achieving milestones. You too, Johnny. You're an absolute genius behind those cameras, and it's only because of you and what you've contributed to us, John, in the last 10 years that we're all standing here.
Now, one thing about Steve is he just made sure that the people around him knew that he loved them more than anything on earth. You know, he's a very hard exterior guy, you know, tough, robust, you know, charges everything, but incredibly soft guy deep down.
It's because of Johnny. This guy's just a legend, and he's been so successful with what we've done.
And I understand now why he did it, because we don't know what's around the corner, no one does.
So thank you, John.
No problem.
Yay for Johnny.
Tonight, tragedy on the reef. Steve Irwin killed by a stingray.
Today the world has lost a great wildlife icon, a passionate conservationist, and one of the proudest dads on the planet.
The man known as the Crocodile Hunter, Steve Irwin, has died. He was killed
He was diving with stingrays when one speared him through the chest. It happened on Bat Reef just after 11 this morning.
Steve Irwin is survived by wife Terry, who's been travelling in Tasmania, and children Bindi and Bob. They'll ensure the legend lives on.
I am a wildlife warrior, and I'll fight to the death for wildlife.
For me to step into the very first press conference, which happened that afternoon, it was probably the worst experience I've ever felt. We walked into the room, and I just saw the sea of faces looking at me as I walked in, and there was silence. And the emotion just came so hard inside of me. I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. I just walked straight through them and said, I can't do this. And I walked into another room the other side. And I just sat in there for about 5 minutes and tried to compose myself. I kept saying, Steve, we want you to do this. Johnny, you got to do it, you got to do it. Steve, we want you to do this. He'd do it for you. And so I just got up and went in, sat down. You'll have to bear with me, guys. I'll just say a brief statement.
Every second I talked to John on the phone, he was crying. And yet he had to push through that and get on camera and talk to, I don't know how many journalists.
He died what he did. He loved doing best. And he left this world in a happy and peaceful state of mind. He would have said, Croc's rule. Okay. Your questions?
Your mind's in this period of just a horrendous grieving process. And so I'd just see him and he'd be just a mess.
And the next minute he's gone. And it's shocking. It's a very hard thing to watch because you're actually witnessing somebody die. The only vision that I have that is the strongest image I have in my mind is Steve dying on the back of that boat. And I can't get rid of that. I can't see any other vision past that boat, the back of that boat. And that is where the hurt is and the sadness is, because there was so much that we really enjoyed, you know, and there's so many things that we did in life. And I can't get past the back of the boat at all.
I mean, right from the word go, John has borne the brunt of a lot of the media attention.
Good afternoon, everybody.
He's allowed both Bindi, Bob, myself, Terry and the family to get over that initial hump, that initial shock, when you don't really want to talk to anybody. You know, you don't even want to look at anybody. And John just took that on the chin. He was my hero. Yeah.
Okay, that's it, everybody. Thank you very, very much for your time, and we'll talk again the next couple of days.
I've been both surprised and amazed, I guess, by the public reaction from all over the world. We've had some amazing letters and gifts from people from everywhere, and I can't thank them enough.
John Williamson, in the meantime, will have walked from the feed ramp over there. He will have walked around and come to the forefront here.
Terry informed me that there was an offer of a state funeral for Steve.
And then by that time you'll all be in there.
I think all of us decided at that time that that wasn't what Steve would have wanted. Steve would have wanted to have it in an area where he really loved.
He was rough, but he was real.
I knew people would be sad at certain points, but then I'd try and lift it again with some comedy and some funny bits, because Steve is an entertainer. I mean, you look at him, you smile. We had no incompetent people around us. We've only had top cameramen like this guy, and everybody that worked with us got us to where we were. That's part of our team. I can't handle anyone that is not professional and doesn't do their job and gives me back chat or says, no, it can't be done. We're all understood. You can't get voices out of the back of your head. But I rest my case. I can understand why, people think that you can be over demanding of them, but I still, in the back of my mind, I know what I want, and I find it very frustrating that I have to have it done exactly how I want it done. It's one of my worst traits.
Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo?
G'day, I'm John Stainton. I'm Steve's best mate, his producer, director.
But by far Steve's greatest achievement has been as a dad. His love and dedication to his children has been inspiring. To me, he was my hero. He saved my life. I'll miss you, mate.
When she's in a fight.
A lot of the key speakers were locked in. When it came to the family, Terry, Bindi, Bob, I left it totally open.
The animals have lost the best friend they ever had. And so have I. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Bindi was a contender because, you know, she's quite comfortable talking out in front of a crowd and she was quite composed. So she was going to be a starter.
How big that is, I don't think she probably understands at this point. She certainly knows that when she does what she does, people enjoy it. I think that's what she gets a bit of a kick out of, actually.
My daddy was my hero.
And she looks at you just with these kid eyes, with no, you know, she doesn't worry, oh, gee, do you think I look all right? She's very much like Steve in that respect. It's like, here I am, this is who I am, what do you think?
I had the best daddy in the whole world, and I will miss him every day. When I see a crocodile, I will always think of him.
She's just really a smaller version of her dad.
So everyone could come and learn to love all the animals.
She wrote that speech for the memorial all by herself. Nobody corrected anything. And she was just absolutely terrific.
Daddy made this place his whole life. Now it's our turn to help Daddy. Thank you.
I think she was probably the star attraction of the whole memorial service. I think because she stood out so well that it started a bit of a groundswell of media attention to the fact of, was Bindi being pushed out there too quick, or was she being not allowed to grieve, or was she not going through the process, and she shouldn't be doing television, she shouldn't be doing this sort of work so early.
Tonight, Bindi Irwin's big night out, the little wildlife.
Steve really was looking forward to the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, and so the whole thing was set up to give Bindi a great night out. He was so proud that she was going to come down and walk the orange carpet with him, and together they would have been just a great team. And she just jumped at the chance. And you know, it was the first time that I've seen in 4 or 5 weeks a beaming smile on her face, and I was so proud of her.
Hand in hand with her mum.
Briefed her very, very thoroughly on the noise levels that she was going to have. I also told her and warned her of the press, how they'd be screaming her name and be wanting to ask questions of her. And I told her that I would always be there to just move her along when I felt that she had enough with 1 or 2 people.
Bindi Irwin has become one of the biggest names in the country at just 8.
This kid is 8 years old.
There's a lot of pressure on that little girl, but she seems to be rising to it.
Into this job of being the front person for the whole empire.
I didn't want her to get swamped with a lot of questions that would probably get into an emotional state of the tragedy that we'd had.
You saw her last night answering questions on the red carpet. It did seem to me they were terribly rehearsed sort of answers.
You're mentioning, of course, she was at the Nickelodeon Awards last night.
Yeah.
I do worry, though, a bit about how Bindi Irwin is forever discussed.
I reckon it's an industry you should keep our children away from at all costs.
Here, here.
I know there are people out there probably saying, oh, you know, she shouldn't have come out this early, or she shouldn't be doing those sort of shows at that age. She does what she really wants to do. No one is telling her she has to do that. It's always a question, do you want to go and do this? Do you want to do the red carpet? You don't have to do anything at all. She does not have to do anything at all. She does not want to. I think they don't understand, you know, this little girl is very much enjoying what she's doing. It's part of her life. And I think the fact that she has been doing it, she does it very well, she's professional in what she does, that I think it's harder for her not to be able to do that than anything. And I think the sort of psychologists or psychiatrists or child counsellors or whatever that jumped on the bandwagon and said that It was harmful to her. Don't understand the situation whatsoever.
I wish she was way too, Daddy.
Yeah, well, she's very, very old. So
Yeah, I know.
tell you what, she's had a good life. She's had a beauty. And now we have to be really strong for her.
Bindi totally understands what has happened. I mean, she's been brought up in a zoo where a lot of animals have died. Suey, Steve's dog, a couple of years ago. Very emotional time for the whole family, and she's seen Steve, her dad, upset very strongly over the loss of animals.
I'm not really sure how Bindi feels herself, but I've actually been with her, and we've both spoken to Steve, and she actually speaks to him like he's there helping her.
I think she's just dealt with it like any normal kid. She talks about him, she misses him, she cries for him. So she's doing everything normal. She's not bottling it up and, you know, not talking. I mean, she talks about Steve every day. And so I think her grieving process is very normal.
And rolling. And action.
Humphrey is 5 years old and he's still growing. The big things that I've learnt from my dad is that you can just say what you want to say. Even though I give you the piece, you can add things in with it. I think people hunted them for their really pretty fur and they used to eat them, which is really, really sad. But we're so lucky because we've got Humphrey. I thought that Humphrey was an amazing bison. He was pretty big because you're looking up and you're going, wow, that's pretty big for a bison. But he's just so cute and he's such a friendly bison.
They're a very close family. I mean, the fact that, you know, Steve's not in the group anymore, they're still a family and they still have to go ahead. And Terry is very aware that she has to pick up very quickly and move on.
John Stainton is much more than just a friend to Steve and I and Terry. John has been more family to us. He's done amazing things for Steve, and he is now going to do amazing things for Terry and Bindi.
We got some good footage from the exhibition that was taken by the cameraman down there.
We all make sure that we keep in really close contact, and you know, the filming's been good today because of that. You know, we're all together again, and we're all working together again and looking after each other. And I mean, John's family, you know, pretty much. He's always been there. I can't remember a time when he wasn't there. You know.
John, he wants to smell your head. Bindi will be with you.
No, Bindi. No, we can't be loud in front of these buffaloes, can we? Okay, roll. And we're rolling. Here we go.
The danger element has always been there with Steve because he's in the firing line.
I'm going to be the baby buffalo.
With Bindi, it's going to be a lot softer.
Watch out for my horns.
The animals that she comes in contact with are not going to be ones that'll hurt her. But we have to be mindful of it. We have to be always mindful of that. Because things can backfire on us, like with the baby Bob incident.
Baby Bob Irwin is only 1 month old. He can't even support his own head, but yesterday his father introduced him to the world in a crocodile pen.
The only time we ever came into, it wasn't conflict, it was just a difference of opinion of how to deal with something.
In front of that crocodile, I was in complete control.
But others say that Steve Irwin should have known better.
What I tried to say to Steve was, look, just go out and say sorry and it'll all go away, you know. And he said, no, I'm not doing that. I won't say I'm sorry because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't put my baby in jeopardy or in harm's way.
This one bizarre act, according to some observers, could undermine a very successful marketing tool.
It was like throwing a hand grenade into our world, and it sort of set off a few chain reactions.
Believes the Steve Irwin icon has been tarnished.
I thought, okay, it's time for a change. I think we probably need to look at a new image for Steve.
By Craigie, I mean, golly gee whiz. You got the worst American accent of any buffalo I've ever heard.
But it was out of character, and the audience couldn't see Steve as Steve anymore, so there was a reaction against that.
And there's only one thing left to do, sweetheart.
You know, they weren't used to not seeing him in khakis. And I think in hindsight I would have done it. I shouldn't have done that. At the moment we're into a series which is called Bindi the Jungle Girl.
The Crocodile Hunter, now his only daughter is Bindi the Jungle Girl.
Bindi the Jungle Girl is really lucky because she lives in a tree house and she gets lots of animals in and out.
You're a talkative little kookaburra.
This is a kookaburra. Isn't she beautiful? She hangs out with lots of wildlife. She just loves kissing a koala or hugging a snake. So, yeah.
How's that one, Cookie?
We've done about 7 episodes up till now. We've got another 19 to go for this series.
Not very good.
The way that it works is that Steve plays co-star to Bindi.
Anyway, while Dad practices his kookaburra call.
It's just the little reactions that she gives to a dad who's, you know, doing sort of silly stuff, but she just sort of, you know, has that little quiet, It's great. It was only when we were shooting these first episodes, I said to Steve, you know, this little girl is going to eclipse you. She's going to be a bigger star than you ever have been. And he said, bring it on.
Give me a chance. Give me a chance.
We'll never refer to the fact that Steve is no longer with us. It'll just flow. You won't see the 7 episodes and then he disappears. Those 7 episodes will, you know, be tailored right through, and it might be episode 26, he's still in it. So I don't think anyone's really going to notice it too much. I don't think, because he's such a powerful force in the show anyway, I don't think they're going to lose too much of him not being in the hostings.
How's that?
My favourite animal would probably be a dingo, because I like how in the night at the zoo you can hear them howl and stuff like that. It's just amazing.
Since I met Steve at 14, every day of my life I thought of him. You know, he taught me everything I knew. To lose that, you know, I think it's so early yet. I think I've got a long, hard road to go.
You get all dust in your eyes.
Yeah, I'm trying not to.
A little bit of that buffalo slobber still on. Jeez, that's annoying stuff.
Oh, right here as well. It's like...
Yeah. You can't get a second act like Steve. There's no second act for me. There is the challenge of helping Bindi grow and become a success, and that challenge is a separate thing to the excitement and the bonding and the power of what Steve and I created. That's different, and it's gone.
Don't stand near John.
John Stainton isn't only a friend of mine, he's the person that I would like to guide Bindi through the rest of her career, and I think she's going to have a really, really big career. John will work closely with Terry, and I think with the two of them it will be a perfect match.
When it comes to the end of the day, Terry is the greatest mum in the world, and she knows exactly what is good for Bindi, and she will be there to guide it through. It may be some time before I get a direction, and I know we're going forward. In the long term, I don't know. I don't know how I'll react or cope or what I do, or whether I want to give it all away.